Have you ever noticed how the harder you try to find time for what's truly important to you, the more elusive that time becomes? There's a reason for this, and once you see it, everything shifts. Let me show you what I mean. Right now, you're probably feeling like time is your enemy, always running out when you need it most, disappearing into activities that don't really matter, and leaving you with a constant sense that you're not spending your life on what truly counts. You might have tried time management systems, productivity apps, schedules, and elaborate planning methods, only to find yourself still struggling to make space for the relationships, goals, and experiences that give your life meaning. Most people approach this challenge like they're trying to solve a math problem, calculating how to fit more important activities into an already full schedule, rearranging existing commitments to create small pockets of time, or hoping to become more efficient so they can squeeze in what matters. But this addition-based approach to time management is why most people feel constantly behind and never quite satisfied with how they're spending their precious days. What I'm about to share will completely transform your relationship with time and your understanding of what it means to live intentionally. You'll discover that the problem isn't that you don't have enough time, it's that you haven't learned to distinguish between time that's merely filled and time that's truly invested in what matters most to you. By the end of our time together, you'll understand that making time for what truly matters isn't about finding more hours in your day, but about fundamentally shifting how you think about time itself. You'll learn to create what I call meaningful time. Moments and periods that are so aligned with your deepest values and authentic desires that they feel both significant and satisfying, regardless of how busy your schedule might be. Have you noticed how much mental and emotional energy you spend thinking about time? Worrying about not having enough, feeling guilty about how you've used it, and constantly calculating whether you can fit important things into your already packed schedule. There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on managing time as a resource rather than understanding our relationship with time as an experience. Picture this. It's Sunday evening, and you're looking at the week ahead with a mixture of determination and dread. You want to spend quality time with your family, make progress on that creative project that excites you, exercise regularly, maintain your friendships, and maybe even read that book you've been meaning to get to for months. You pull out your calendar and try to map out when these important activities might fit between work meetings, household responsibilities, and the dozens of small tasks that somehow consume entire days. By Wednesday, you're already behind on everything that matters to you. Work expanded to fill more time than you planned, unexpected demands arose that you couldn't ignore, and the 30 minutes you allocated for your creative project got absorbed by email and administrative tasks. The quality time with family became hurried interactions between other activities. Exercise got postponed until tomorrow, and that book remains untouched on your nightstand. This cycle repeats week after week because most people operate from what psychologists call time scarcity mindset, the belief that there's never enough time for what truly matters, and that the solution is to become more efficient at managing the time you have. But this scarcity-based approach creates a paradox. The more you focus on managing time efficiently, the less satisfied you feel with how you're actually spending your life. The deeper issue is that we've been conditioned to think about time like money, a finite resource that must be allocated carefully across competing priorities. This economic model of time creates constant anxiety because there are always more valuable things you could be doing than whatever you're currently doing. You end up living in a perpetual state of opportunity cost awareness, never fully present with your current activity because you're mentally calculating what else you should be accomplishing. But time isn't actually like money. Money spent on one thing can't be spent on another. But time spent meaningfully enriches everything else you do. When you're fully present with a friend, you don't just invest in that relationship, you practice presence that enhances all your relationships. When you engage deeply with work that aligns with your values, you don't just accomplish tasks, you develop skills and satisfaction that spill over into other areas of your life. The scarcity mindset also creates what researchers call time poverty, the subjective feeling of having insufficient time even when you technically have the same 24 hours as everyone else. This time poverty isn't about actual lack of time, but about the quality of attention you bring to your activities. When you're constantly thinking about what you should be doing instead of what you are doing, every moment feels rushed and insufficient. Think of the difference between eating a meal while scrolling your phone versus savoring that same meal with complete attention. The second experience feels both more satisfying and longer, even though the actual time elapsed is identical. This reveals something crucial. Your experience of time is largely determined by the quality of presence you bring to whatever you're doing. Perhaps most importantly, the scarcity approach to time prevents you from recognizing that some activities are time-generative rather than time-consuming. When you do work that energizes you, spend time with people who inspire you, or engage in activities that restore your vitality, you often feel like you have more time rather than less. These experiences don't drain your temporal resources, they renew them. The cultural obsession with busyness has created an environment where having a packed schedule is seen as evidence of importance, success, or virtue. But busyness and meaningfulness are often inversely related. The busier you are with urgent but unimportant activities, the less time you have for activities that create lasting value and deep satisfaction. When you understand that your relationship with time is largely determined by consciousness rather than just calendar management, everything changes about how you approach making space for what truly matters. You begin to see that the question isn't how to find more time, but how to bring more intention, presence, and alignment to the time you already have.
Let me tell you about a wise teacher in ancient India who was known throughout the region for living with extraordinary peace and accomplishment, despite never appearing hurried or stressed. Students would seek him out, expecting to learn advanced time management techniques or special methods for increased productivity. When a young merchant approached the teacher, he was frustrated and exhausted from trying to balance his growing business with his desire to spend time with his family, pursue spiritual practice, and contribute to his community. "Master," he said, "I have so many important responsibilities. How do you manage to accomplish everything that matters without constant stress and rushing?" The teacher smiled and invited the merchant to spend a day observing his routine. The merchant expected to see elaborate scheduling systems or rapid task completion methods. Instead, he watched the teacher move through his day with a quality of attention that was completely foreign to his own experience. When the teacher ate breakfast, he ate breakfast completely, not planning his day or reviewing problems while mechanically consuming food. When he tended his garden, his entire being was engaged with the plants, the soil, and the morning light. When students came with questions, he gave them his complete presence, rather than partial attention while thinking about other responsibilities. "I don't understand," the merchant said. "You seem to move so slowly, yet you accomplish more in a day than many people do in a week. What's your secret?" The teacher led the merchant to a nearby river where they watched two different groups trying to cross. One group rushed frantically from rock to rock, slipping frequently and having to retrace their steps. The other group moved deliberately, testing each step carefully before proceeding, and crossed safely without wasted motion. "Tell me," the teacher asked, "which group reached the other side more quickly?" The merchant realized that the careful group had actually crossed faster, despite appearing to move more slowly. "But how does this apply to daily life?" he asked. Over the following days, the teacher explained what he called presence-based living, a way of engaging with activities that created depth and satisfaction rather than just completion. He showed how rushing through tasks to save time often required redoing them, how multitasking reduced the quality of everything he attempted, and how partial attention to important people and activities left him feeling unsatisfied despite technical accomplishment. Most people, the teacher explained, live in time scarcity because they're always thinking about where they should be instead of being where they are. This mental absence from the present moment makes every experience feel rushed and insufficient, creating the very time poverty they're trying to escape. The teacher demonstrated how full presence with any activity, even routine tasks, transformed both the quality of the work and the experience of time itself. When you bring complete attention to whatever you're doing, time expands rather than contract. Minutes feel fuller, experiences become more satisfying, and you accomplish more with less effort because you're not fighting against your own divided attention. The most profound lesson came when the teacher showed the merchant how to distinguish between activities that drained his life force and those that renewed it. Not all uses of time are equal, he explained. Some activities consume your essence, while others restore it. The wise person learns to recognize the difference and structures her life accordingly. The merchant learned that the teacher wasn't just managing time more efficiently, he was living in a fundamentally different relationship with time itself. Instead of seeing time as a scarce resource to be hoarded and allocated, he experienced time as a medium for meaningful engagement with life. True mastery of time, the teacher concluded, comes not from doing more things faster, but from doing fewer things with such complete presence that each activity becomes deeply nourishing rather than merely completed. When you live this way, you discover that time is not your enemy, but your ally in creating a life of depth and satisfaction. Years later, the merchant had transformed his own relationship with time using these principles. He found that he could accomplish everything necessary for his business while also being present with his family, maintaining his spiritual practice, and contributing to his community. Not because he had found more hours in the day, but because he had learned to inhabit each hour more completely. This ancient wisdom reveals something timeless about the relationship between consciousness and time. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your temporal experience more than the quantity of activities you complete. Here's what transforms everything about making time for what truly matters. You don't manage time, you manage attention. And when you give complete attention to what matters most, time naturally reorganizes itself around your highest priorities. Most people approach time challenges with a scarcity mindset, believing they need to find more hours, become more efficient, or eliminate all non-essential activities to make space for what's important. They treat time like a zero-sum game, where giving attention to one thing necessarily means taking it away from something else. But this mechanical approach to time management misses the fundamental truth about how meaningful time actually works. Let me tell you about Sarah, a working mother who felt constantly torn between competing demands and never satisfied with how she was spending her time. She had tried every productivity system available: time blocking, task batching, elimination strategies, delegation techniques, but still felt like she was failing to give adequate attention to anything that truly mattered to her. Sarah's breakthrough came when she stopped trying to manage time and started managing her attention instead. Instead of calculating how to fit more important activities into her schedule, she began focusing completely on whatever she was doing in each moment, whether it was work, parenting, or personal time. The results were immediately noticeable. When Sarah gave her complete attention to her children during their bedtime routine, those 30 minutes felt richer and more connecting than hours of distracted interaction had previously felt. When she focused entirely on important work projects without mental multitasking, she accomplished in 2 hours what had previously taken entire days of fragmented effort.
Most remarkably, Sarah discovered that complete presence with any activity seemed to create more time rather than consume it. Meals eaten with full attention felt longer and more satisfying. Conversations with friends became deeper and more fulfilling. Even routine tasks like household chores felt less burdensome when approached with mindful engagement rather than rushed completion. This experience revealed a revolutionary insight. Time is not a container that you fill with activities, but a quality of experience that you create through the depth of your engagement. When you bring complete presence to whatever you're doing, that activity becomes temporally expansive rather than temporally consuming. This insight challenges our cultural assumption that importance must be measured by duration. Many people believe that if something truly matters, they need to spend large amounts of time on it. But quality of attention often matters more than quantity of time. 15 minutes of complete presence with a loved one can be more meaningful than hours of distracted interaction. This understanding also reveals why most time management techniques fail to create lasting satisfaction. They focus on optimizing the mechanics of scheduling without addressing the consciousness you bring to scheduled activities. You can have a perfectly organized calendar and still feel like you're not living meaningfully if you're not present with your experiences as they unfold. The revolutionary aspect of this insight is that it inverts the typical relationship between time and priority. Instead of trying to find time for what matters, you start by giving your complete attention to what matters, and time naturally reorganizes itself to accommodate this focus. When you're genuinely engaged with meaningful activities, you become more efficient, more creative, and more energized in ways that create additional time for other important pursuits. This approach also eliminates the exhausting mental overhead of constant time calculation. When you're fully present with your current activity, you're not simultaneously running mental spreadsheets about how you should be allocating your remaining hours. This presence creates what psychologists call temporal flow, states where time seems to expand and contract naturally based on the quality of your engagement. Perhaps most importantly, this insight reveals that making time for what truly matters isn't about external reorganization, but about internal reorientation. It's about developing the capacity to recognize what deserves your complete attention, and then offering that attention generously rather than guardedly. When you understand that attention is the currency of meaningful time, you begin making different choices about where you invest your mental and emotional energy. You become more selective about activities that fragment your attention and more committed to activities that invite your full presence. You discover that meaningful time isn't something you find. It's something you create through the quality of consciousness you bring to each moment. Foundation 1. Clarity. The first foundation for making time for what truly matters is developing crystal clear understanding of what actually matters most to you, rather than operating based on inherited shoulds, social expectations, or unconscious assumptions about how you ought to spend your time. Most people have never taken the time to consciously identify their authentic priorities. They operate on autopilot, saying yes to requests and opportunities based on immediate pressure rather than deeper alignment with their values and long-term vision. This lack of clarity makes it impossible to distinguish between urgent distractions and important investments. True clarity begins with honest reflection on what brings you genuine satisfaction, fulfillment, and sense of meaning. This isn't about what you think should matter or what others expect to matter to you, but about what actually energizes, inspires, and feels significant when you engage with it fully. This foundation also involves distinguishing between surface-level desires and deeper values. You might think you want more leisure time, but what you actually want is more restoration and renewal. You might believe you need more social activities, but what you truly seek is deeper connection and authentic relationship. Getting clear about the underlying needs helps you identify activities that truly serve your well-being. Clarity also requires understanding your unique rhythms, energy patterns, and optimal conditions for different types of activities. When do you naturally have the most energy for creative work? What time of day are you most present and available for meaningful conversation? How much solitude versus social interaction do you need to feel balanced? This self-knowledge allows you to align your most important activities with your natural capacity. As this foundation develops, decision-making becomes much easier because you have clear criteria for evaluation. Opportunities that align with your authentic priorities become obvious yeses, while those that don't serve your deeper values become graceful no's. This clarity eliminates the exhausting deliberation that comes from trying to evaluate every option equally. Foundation 2. Protection. The second foundation involves learning to protect your time and attention for what matters most by creating boundaries, saying no to competing demands, and designing your environment to support rather than undermine your priorities. Protection isn't about being selfish or avoiding all responsibilities. It's about recognizing that your attention is a finite and precious resource that, if not consciously directed, will be consumed by whoever or whatever demands it most loudly. Without protection, your time gets fragmented into countless small commitments that individually seem reasonable, but collectively prevent you from engaging deeply with anything meaningful. This foundation requires developing what researchers call priority protection, the skill of maintaining focus on important long-term objectives despite constant pressure from urgent short-term demands. This might mean scheduling specific times for important activities and treating those commitments as seriously as you would treat important meetings with others. Protection also involves creating physical and digital environments that support your priorities rather than constantly pulling your attention toward distractions. This might include organizing your workspace to minimize interruptions, using technology intentionally rather than reactively, and establishing clear boundaries about when you're available for various types of communication. The practice of protection also includes learning to say no gracefully but firmly to requests that don't align with your authentic priorities. This requires developing comfort with disappointing others in the short term to remain aligned with what matters most in the long term. Most people dramatically underestimate how much others respect clear, honest boundaries. As this foundation strengthens, you'll find that protecting your time for what matters most actually enhances your ability to contribute meaningfully to others. When you're operating from a foundation of clarity and alignment, your presence and contributions become more valuable rather than less. Rhythm also includes understanding your larger temporal patterns, daily cycles, weekly rhythms, seasonal changes, and designing your life to work with these natural fluctuations rather than against them. Some people are naturally more reflective in winter and more active in summer. Some need more social connection on weekends and more solitude during the week. As this foundation develops, you'll find that honoring your natural rhythms actually creates more time for what matters because you're working with your energy patterns rather than against them. You'll also discover that guilt about rest disappears when you understand renewal as an essential component of sustainable engagement rather than a luxury or weakness. Now that you understand the 4 foundations, let's explore specific strategies for implementing these principles in your daily life. The goal is to create sustainable systems that consistently guide your time and attention toward what matters most to you. Values clarification. Life priority assessment. Spend time identifying the 3 to 5 areas of life that are most important to your sense of meaning and fulfillment. These might include specific relationships, creative pursuits, health practices, professional contributions, or personal growth activities. Use these as your North Star for time allocation decisions. Values-based scheduling. Before committing to any new activity or obligation, ask, does this serve one of my core priorities, or does it compete with them? This simple filter can prevent your calendar from filling up with activities that look good but don't actually align with what matters most to you. Energy audit. Track your energy levels before and after different activities for a week. Notice which activities leave you feeling energized and which leave you feeling drained. Use this information to structure your time around energy-giving activities while minimizing or eliminating energy-draining ones. Meaning assessment. Regularly evaluate your current commitments and activities based on their contribution to your sense of purpose and satisfaction. Activities that feel meaningful deserve more time and attention, while those that feel empty or obligatory should be candidates for elimination or delegation. Boundary creation. Priority protection blocks. Schedule specific, non-negotiable time blocks for your most important activities and treat these appointments with yourself as seriously as you would treat important meetings with others. Protect these blocks from interruption and schedule other activities around them. Communication boundaries. Establish clear expectations with family, friends, and colleagues about when you're available for various types of communication. This might include specific hours for checking email, designated times for phone calls, or agreed upon response timeframes for different types of requests. Environmental design. Organize your physical and digital environments to support your priorities rather than constantly pulling your attention toward distractions. This might mean creating a dedicated space for important work, removing distracting apps from your phone, or establishing routines that naturally guide you toward meaningful activities. Graceful declining. Develop templates and strategies for saying no to requests that don't align with your priorities. Practice declining invitations, volunteer opportunities, and social obligations in ways that maintain relationships while protecting your time for what matters most. Presence practices can help you pay complete attention to one activity at a time, especially during activities that matter most to you. When spending time with loved ones, close devices and eliminate other distractions. When working on important projects, focus entirely on that work without mental multitasking. Develop brief practices for transitioning between different activities rather than rushing from one thing to the next. This might include taking 3 conscious breaths, setting an intention for the next activity, or spending a moment appreciating what you just completed. Quality over quantity. Focus on bringing higher quality attention to your most important activities, rather than trying to increase the quantity of time you spend on them. 15 minutes of complete presence with a child can be more meaningful than hours of distracted interaction. Present moment anchoring. Regularly return your attention to immediate sensory experience, what you can see, hear, feel, smell, or taste in this moment. This practice interrupts mental time travel and brings you back to the only moment where meaningful action is possible. Rhythm development. Energy mapping identifies your natural patterns of high and low energy throughout the day and week. Schedule your most important activities during peak energy periods and save routine tasks for lower energy times. Recovery integration. Build genuine restoration into your schedule rather than treating it as something you'll do if you have time left over. This might include regular exercise, time in nature, creative hobbies, or social connection that truly renews your energy for meaningful engagement. Seasonal awareness. Adjust your commitments and activities based on natural seasonal rhythms and personal life circumstances. Honor periods when you naturally need more rest and solitude, as well as periods when you have more energy for engagement and productivity. Weekly rhythm design. Create a weekly template that includes time for all your core priorities, rather than hoping you'll fit important things in around other commitments. This template should honor both your need for meaningful engagement and your need for renewal. Advanced strategies. Time perception training. Practice activities that naturally create temporal expansion. Meditation, creative flow work, meaningful conversation, time in nature. Regular engagement with these activities trains your nervous system to experience time as abundant rather than scarce. Legacy perspective. Regularly ask yourself, if I could only do one thing today that would matter in 5 years, what would it be? This long-term perspective helps distinguish between urgent distractions and important investments. Integration opportunities. Look for ways to combine multiple priorities in single activities. This might mean exercising with a friend to serve both health and relationship goals, or involving family members in meaningful work to integrate family time with professional contribution. Regular review.
Schedule weekly or monthly sessions to review how you're spending your time and whether your activities align with your stated priorities. Use this feedback to continuously adjust your approach rather than hoping good intentions will automatically create good results. As you consistently apply these principles, you'll experience a fundamental shift in your relationship with time that extends far beyond improved productivity or better schedule management. You'll discover what it means to inhabit your life rather than just manage it.
Temporal abundance. One of the most profound changes you'll notice is a shift from feeling constantly pressed for time to experiencing what researchers call temporal abundance, the sense that you have enough time for what truly matters. This abundance comes not from having more hours, but from using your hours more intentionally and presently. When you give complete attention to meaningful activities, those experiences feel fuller and more satisfying, creating a subjective sense of time expansion. You'll find that quality moments seem to last longer and leave deeper impressions than quantities of distracted time. Enhanced satisfaction. Your overall life satisfaction will increase as you spend more time on activities that align with your authentic values and interests. Research consistently shows that people who spend time on intrinsically meaningful activities report higher levels of happiness and fulfillment than those who focus primarily on external achievements or social expectations. This satisfaction comes partly from better outcomes. When you focus your attention on what matters most, you naturally achieve better results in those areas. But more importantly, it comes from the inherent satisfaction of living in alignment with your deepest values and authentic desires. Deeper relationships. Your relationships will naturally deepen as you learn to give people your complete presence rather than partial attention while thinking about other responsibilities. Quality presence is one of the greatest gifts you can offer another person, and it creates intimacy and connection that can't be achieved through quantity time alone. You'll also find that being selective about social commitments allows you to invest more deeply in the relationships that matter most to you, creating a smaller but much more satisfying social circle. Creative flow. Regular engagement with meaningful activities often leads to increased creativity and innovation in all areas of your life. When you're operating from alignment rather than obligation, your natural creativity has space to emerge and express itself. This creative capacity develops because meaningful engagement allows your subconscious mind to fully participate in your activities, often producing insights and solutions that surprise you with their elegance and effectiveness. Natural productivity. Perhaps paradoxically, focusing on meaning often leads to increased productivity in all areas of your life. When you're energized by activities that matter to you, that energy spills over into other responsibilities, making everything feel easier and more manageable. This natural productivity is sustainable because it's based on intrinsic motivation rather than external pressure or willpower, creating a renewable source of energy for both meaningful engagement and necessary tasks. Integrated living. Ultimately, making time for what truly matters leads to what researchers call integrated living, a way of being where your activities, values, and attention are aligned, rather than in constant conflict. You stop feeling torn between competing demands and start experiencing life as a coherent whole. This integration creates a sense of authenticity and purpose that makes even challenging times feel meaningful rather than just difficult. You develop confidence that you're spending your precious life energy in ways that truly serve your deepest values and highest aspirations. Remember that making time for what truly matters isn't about perfection or eliminating all activities that don't directly serve your highest priorities. It's about developing the awareness and skill to recognize what deserves your complete attention and then offering that attention as generously as possible. The goal isn't to create a life free from all demands or responsibilities, but to inhabit whatever life you have with such presence and intention that even ordinary moments become opportunities for meaning and connection. When you master this art, You discover that time isn't something you manage, it's something you experience, and that experience can be rich and satisfying regardless of how many hours are on your calendar. As you continue developing these skills, remember that every moment offers a fresh opportunity to choose presence over distraction, meaning over busyness, and authentic engagement over automatic reaction. Your growing capacity to make these choices moment by moment is what transforms not just your schedule, but your entire experience of being alive.